Hello and welcome to the Fire Officer Project podcast, a show where we will discuss and learn together about topics specific to the American Fire Service. Come along as we explore areas such as firehouse traditions and culture, the fire family life, leadership, as well as getting yourself ready to be the company officer. This show is for everyone from the rookie firefighter to newly promoted officers. I'm your host, Mark McCurdy. Now let's get on with the show. All right, well, here we go with episode 15, Probation. I just keep it simple on the title because you got to sit there and try to think of something to get people's attention and get them to push play or want to listen to you. So I'm just going to talk about probationary periods in rank too. So this isn't just for new people on the job who are going through their first year or 18 months or 6 months, or whatever your department does for their probationary period. I'm also going to talk about what it's like to be a company officer when you have somebody on probation, engineer, firefighters, basically people under you. And then when you're on probation as a captain, so kind of not just one-sided thing. We're going to talk about different angles of probation. And really, is there much to talk about? Yeah, you're the new guy. Okay, cool. There's a lot, though, I think, that you have to consider for when you're the supervisor of somebody who's on probation. And then maybe I'll give you some tips here for anybody that's listening that's maybe getting into the fire service, is on probation, and little things. So not everything I say is going to be like, what's this guy talking about? Because I'll give you my background of how long I've been out of the testing process as far as new hire. But I've had enough new people on the job come in to my station or wherever I've been or worked around them, and right, you can kind of tell right away, good, bad, in the middle, could be better, but things like that. So I'll talk about a couple of those things, and then we'll just go down this whole list, kind of like I normally do, and try to keep it flowing, and I'll do my normal bouncing back and forth, but I'll try to stay on point as best as possible. So, like I said, a lot of this stuff is my personal opinion, obviously. I don't really have a back and forth conversation on this one, but as I finish up this last few of just me talking, it's kind of, I've interjected it into questions I'm going to ask people in an interview through episode stuff and get other people's opinion. But this one right now is mine, obviously. And so it comes from experience as far as being around probationary people and having to do their paperwork and sitting them down in the office and talking to them and all those things that come along with being in charge of a group. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Usually I give you the bullet points, but it's pretty much just going to flow. Everything is going to revolve around probationary period stuff. So, yeah. And just want to, again, the first time listening, or maybe this is the first time you've heard this, and this episode is the one that grabs your attention, I just want to say thank you to everybody recently for all the milestones we've reached. We've gotten over 7,500 downloads and over 1,000 just in the past 30 days. That's all thanks to you. It has nothing to do with me. I mean, I push it on my social media a little bit, but I try not to get nutty with it because people get sick of saying, hey, listen to me. But literally, it's starting to get the train rolling. Enough so where I've gotten some emails from people saying, hey, let's collaborate, sponsors. I don't even know what that stuff entails. I haven't even opened that door yet. I'm just starting to get those emails. And I don't know that I want to have something where you got to get broken up with commercials and things. But if it's something that's relevant, and then I think could help, or is something that people might want to hear, or if it's a product or something, maybe I'll entertain that. I need to venture into that next. There's so many little things that start to open up, and then you realize, guess what? We still only have 24 hours in a day. I can only do so much. And we can always do more, right? We always say, oh, my day is packed. Yeah, sure, but if I stop looking at my phone or actually organize myself a little better, I'd probably get more done, just like all of us. But I'm trying, you got to balance everything. If you saw my recent post a couple days ago, went to Disneyland with the family, and that was awesome. And you know what's crazy is you have to we're so, I don't know if it's a type A personality of firefighters or just people in general or just the way society is now, or just constantly go, go, go. Then I have to tell myself to pump the brakes and stay in the moment. Honestly, the only time I was looking at my phone during the day, was a map, because now everything's on your app. Even tickets to get into that place is on your app, on your phone. And you look at wait times and do all that stuff. For the rest, didn't even want to hear about it. It's like I just want to stay in the moment with the fam, enjoy the day, and it worked out perfect. It was a great day. It actually rained for like an hour, so we were getting dumped on. But you know what? It's a story that adds to the day. It was fun. So anyways, there's my first off the rails sidebar conversation. But anyways, thank you very much for all the support you've given me, and let's just jump right in here. So what I'm going to not be talking about, sometimes that's easier to tell people. What am I not going to hear so I don't waste an hour or your drive home or you're in the garage working on a project or whatever it may be. But what I'm not going to be talking about. I'm not going to be talking about recruitment, testing process, or going through the tower or academy or anything like that. I may make mention of it because I tell a story about my history or how my experience was. But that's not my wheelhouse. I don't have anything to do with recruiting people, with the whole testing process. Now, I might venture off into what it was like to take the written test, but who cares for promotion? Whatever, because every department does it different. So you know what? I'm probably not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about what it's like to go into an academy or a tower exclusively. I'm not going to talk about all those little details. That's just not my wheelhouse. It's changed so much from when I was going through the process. I started the process. I graduated high school in 1993 summer, and I probably started testing 94-ish, early 94-ish. You get through the summer, I just turned 18, but I was still doing the Explorer thing in the city of Glendale, and that was cool. So I knew I was on the right path, but I didn't just jump right in right away. Still learning a little bit, and then so just say 94, and I got hired June of 2000. There's a pretty big window of 6 years there of testing and getting myself ready. So I'll talk about that piece. But nowadays things are different. Like these guys tell me now they're taking an interview or a Zoom interview, and the testing process is different. And no matter where you go, CPAT test. I think there's even a CPAT style testing card for the written exam. I don't know. It's not my wheelhouse. I don't even really investigate it or try to figure out, just because that's not the passion I have. I'm more dealing with the people that get handed to me and say, I get an email that says, this person's reporting to your station on this day. Boom. That's where I start. So I don't have a good reference because I'm not that person. I haven't done it recently. It's not, like I said, you get it what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm old. I'm just saying things are different, and it's not my passion. So I don't really look into it that much. I have an understanding kind of how it works, but that's about it. So it's funny because I started thinking about testing and the whole process. I still have pretty much all the paperwork from all the testing places I tested at that mattered, not the ones I failed the writtens or failed the interview or whatever. Moving on, they're probably going to hire again. But ones that actually had significance, I kept and keep them in a file. And then the other things I kept that were funny is how we were notified back in the day. This is how we got notified. Nowadays, there's Fire Careers. I think it's firecareers.com. And you get, I'm sure, text message or an email that says these places are hiring. That's cool. That's technology. They have to evolve too. But initially, when I was testing, they had the same company. I think it started off as Perfect Firefighter Candidate. And you would pay, I'll get it all messed up, but whatever, it doesn't matter. You paid a monthly thing and they send you a postcard. So I'd always go to the mail, still living at home, right? Just out of high school. Go to the mail, look for a yellow postcard with my name on it. And then you would flip it over and you would see who's testing. And they would have all the information on it. And then you either had to call the city that was hiring and ask them how their process went, or you sent an interest card in. I don't even know if people do that anymore. There was another separate orange card that we did for interest card, and I'll talk about that shortly. But Perfect Firefighter Candidate was the yellow card, and every time, and you paid by region. It wasn't even nationwide. You paid California, and I think I tested Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico maybe you got, depending on the region. Whatever, doesn't matter, but you understand what I'm saying. I'd always look for that yellow card and be like, oh, so-and-so is hiring, this department's hiring. You did all this legwork, which you're still doing now, but just a little different. Technology has changed everything. But I still have some of those cards. And before writing all this stuff down for this episode, I went and looked for it and found some. And it's just funny to go down memory lane a little bit. and realized that was almost 30 years ago, which is crazy. But what a cool process. Then the orange cards was another company that you paid for that gave you all these pre-printed labels for all these agencies. So somebody put together and just did a pre-printed label package. They sent it to you with these orange cards that says, "Hi, I'm interested in being a firefighter for your, city or whatever. Can you put my information on file?" You put your sticker, or you put the label sticker with the address to them and throw them all in the mail. Then you'd start getting return letters in the mail saying, "We put you on the list. Sorry, we're not hiring." Whatever all these cities. I even kept some of those. Whatever. Maybe I'm hoarding too much, but it's just cool to look at how things were done, right? And sometimes you just had to physically make phone calls and be like, "Can you put me on the list? I want to work here." So just funny stuff to think about. And I don't know, you start going down, like I said, memory lane, and just like all starts flooding back what it took to get to the process. So, like I said, I might say things that you're like, that's not correct, or that's everything that has to do with, in my little wheelhouse that I understand the fire service, and probably in multi-faceted parts of industries and occupations. You got the people that are full of crap, or you got the people that you're like, I don't agree with that person, or we're just, we instantly just discredit somebody because they said one thing wrong. Well, guess what? I'm probably going to say something wrong. But for the most part, I think I know what I'm talking about. And also opinions get wound in there, right? So whatever, just take it for what it's worth. So I don't get all caught up in what I say is right and perfect, because I may be way off base on a few of these things when it comes to the testing process. The other part, I think I'm probably in the ballpark. So let's see. What do I got here? Okay. So I'm going to talk about hitting the floor as a probationary firefighter and things that we hear all the time, like, "Oh, these new people are all screwed up." Well, yeah, no kidding, because they're new, just like we were all new once. So sometimes I wish it would be nice to go back and be a fly on the wall and see how I did things on probation or as a probationary engineer. And that wasn't that long ago. It's not like I can't remember, but I would be interested in going back and seeing my probationary year and going, "God, I did suck." I'm over here thinking I'll have these high expectations for these people, acting like I was super boot or something over here, and knowing that I wasn't. And I had a different process the way I got hired, so I'll explain it as we go along. But yeah, they are screwed up because they're brand new. And some of these, the one coming on recruitment, even without a recruitment thing, you get people with 18 and a pulse on a driver's license that passed a testing process that, however it came about, a group or somebody said, "You know what, this person's worth making into a firefighter." Because we got that, right? We have one extreme. Make somebody into a firefighter that has basically no idea about the fire service, where you have the people that it's been their whole life from the time they can remember. And then you got all these other people kind of in between, but you deal with the two extremes on the bookends, and then you got the middle. So your chances of people being kind of messed up are actually better, because even the person that's quasi in the middle kind of knows what's going on, still doesn't know all the fine details that you know based on how much time you have on and certain experiences you have and maybe expectations that you have, whether they're realistic or not. Because I've done the same, right? I have to go check myself sometimes and go, "Oh, that's not realistic." And you know how you control that, I think, is I just slow down. I try not to be hothead and react to things unless it's something that's going to hurt them. That's different. If it's a safety thing where they're going to get hurt, then yeah, boom, it gets handled. But if it's a thing where you basically look at it and go, "Well, that's not the way I do it," but they got it done within a standard, right? So there's a standard, there's technique, but you might have done one or two things different, stepped this way, pulled this hose this way, or brought this coupling up to here, or threw the ladder this way. Mechanics-wise, you do things a little different. That stuff you're going to have to let go. And if you don't, it's going to eat you up because it's just going to bug you. And it's not easy to do right away. It takes time to realize that and accept that. And you may already do a good job of it now. Maybe I'm making it a bigger deal because it took me a little bit to understand. It's kind of the same way that, you know what, if something happens to me today, and I'm supposed to be at work tomorrow. Something happens to me today, or even tomorrow, somebody's got to work the spot. So they're going to put somebody in there. Once you kind of live in that realm and understand that, and then kind of go on the other one where maybe that's not the way I do it, but they did it okay. And then you refine it and you show them techniques to make things better. And then like the light bulb goes on, then you're getting somewhere. You're getting farther down the road. And your deposits into that person as far as how much you put into them starts to get better. Now, if you're dealing with somebody the extreme opposite, where you show and you put all this time and effort in and you're having patience and you're doing all these things and they're just not getting it, or they're terrible, or what's the one killer thing that's going to push you over the edge that's not going to help them when they're struggling? Their attitude. That's huge. So right now, if you're new on probation or getting ready to be, or whatever it may be, the one point I can give you is attitude is going to save you a ton, because that is human nature. When you have a crappy attitude on top of sucking ass, you're not helping yourself. Now, if you suck and you're just a mess, but you have a good attitude about it, while also trying to get better, you can't just rely on somebody's attitude, because then we get down the road of, but they're a good person. Great. You've heard me complain on here before. They're a good person. And then what? Yeah, but you don't want to work with them. Okay, that can only go so far. You understand my point. Attitude is huge. Body language, attitude, all that combined stuff is going to help you, make you or break you when you're on the fence of struggling, on probation, in the tower, even on probation in rank. I would say attitude, being humble, and trying to fix the problem, like actually putting effort in, can save you, or at least buy you a little more time if you're really screwing up, before somebody just basically puts you in the screw that person category, and they just don't care if you don't make it. So, okay, understand what I'm saying there, so I can stop beating that one up a little bit. Where am I at here? So, like I said, yeah, well, we're going to say things like, oh, they're all screwed up. Oh, okay. We need to help them, right? That's why they're on probation. That's why they give drills, all that stuff. And I'll go a little bit deeper here shortly. But so my little quick story, I think back, like I said, trying to think how I was on probation. I might as well tell you guys now, but I worked for a smaller department when I first got hired, like actually got hired as a firefighter paramedic. That was in June 19th, 2000. That's when I got hired. That was my hire date. And I'd already gone to a fire academy, California State Fire Academy, was a reserve firefighter for an agency where I was like the Monday guy, which I think I might have talked about in other episodes. 24-hour shift for free, was the fourth firefighter on their engine or truck. And that was me every Monday. That was part of my thing while working for an ambulance company and going to school at night, taking fire science classes and things like that. So all these things churning, right? Go to the academy, reserve. A couple years go by. Okay, tried to get into paramedic school a couple times. And at that year, so it was late 90s, a lot of people were trying to go to paramedic school because they thought, oh, that's the shoe-in to getting hired by the fire department, at least in LA or Southern California and other places, but I'll speak exclusively to that. That was a hot ticket. So I only had 6 months. I started trying to get in paramedic school, a year, trying to get in paramedic school, and every time it was, you don't have enough time on the ambulance. Working for a private company, it's kind of rough the way our system sets up here. But finally, got into a paramedic school, Mount Sac Paramedic School. For anybody that knows the area, that time frame, that era, mid-90s, late 90s, my class was 36, so anybody that's around there or even after, or I don't know when things kind of changed, but in a nutshell, let me give you this. 35 people in my class started, and 7 of us finished. And whether it's right or not, it was always the reputation of that place that they tried getting rid of people. So only with the help of family and a lot of other people that helped me get through that program was I able to be one of the 7 that made it through. So, boom. Now I got the medic license. Now I'm working for AMR in Glendale as a 911 provider right out of paramedic school. let's see, November of 99. I think in the spring of 2000, they took over. Glendale Fire started their own paramedic program. So I knew 3 or 4 months I had to run a 911 calls, and then I'd probably be at transport, interfacility transfer medic. But for those 3 or 4 months, it was cool because I was already an explorer in Glendale. I knew a handful of the people. So I'm building reputation, or my reputation was already what it was as an explorer. I didn't know, but now I'm kind of back in that realm again. And my point with this is you don't want to burn bridges ever, as best you can, especially when you're trying to get hired. Because I'll tell you a little story after this, why that can help you and why you don't want to do those things. So it's always that, as much as it sucks and you're getting dragged through the mud and you're working as a reserve firefighter here and you're working here as an ambulance and you're getting beat up and destroyed, you try to do your best at all times to make a positive influence. And that attitude, right? Like I said, the attitude thing. So, still testing like crazy. This department that I finally got hired by, it was nuts. I almost didn't go put the application in because for some of you who know, I don't even know. Like I said, I'm talking out of my tail on this one for how it is now compared to what it was then. But there'd be times where there was nothing going on testing wise, or there was a ton going on. And this, I want to say it was like the last day. There was no online application, none of that. You had to go get this application and physically type it out. Like can't even remember. Everything was done on a typewriter. I don't think I ever did an application on the computer until I promoted. It was all typewriter. So you had to get an application, type it, fit it all in the box and try to type all your stuff in there and your explanation of where you worked and all your references and send it in. Well, this place where when I got hired we're giving out 200 applications. I can't see, I'm screwing up the story, but I think it was maybe 1 or 2 days they were basically giving out 200 applications. It might have just been that one day. And I'm like, well, oh man, I gotta make that work. And how can I do that? So they go, you come down here, the first 200 applications, we're hiring firefighters, state certified, like I've gone through a fire academy. Okay, I'm good there. You had to be an EMT, good, and over 18 or whatever it was. So it wasn't even a medic test. It was just that. It was a 3-station department in Orange County, California area, bumps right up against Los Angeles County. So I'm like, well, it's not that far. I'll get down there. They hand me the application, like, oh yeah, but you can't take it home. You need to fill it out now. And as soon as we hit 200 that are in our hand, we're slamming the door. So, okay. I didn't bring the typewriter with me. I literally went outside and there's people with extension cords and typewriters sitting on the steps of their city hall, plugged into the wall outlet, typing their application. I'm like, well, I didn't bring a typewriter. I don't have time to drive home to go get one. So, well, I guess I'm filling this one out in pen. The one application I fill out in pen and hand back to them and go, well, that was kind of a waste, but whatever. I'll just go through the process because it'll be a learning experience, is the one place I get hired. So out of 200 people, they hired 2. Now, do I think I'm that special? No. I think 2 things happened, which I know 2 things happened. 3 things, 2.5, whatever. 2 major things. One, I had a paramedic license. They weren't hiring paramedics at the time, but they had firefighter paramedics on engines. It wasn't going to hurt me to have that paramedic license. And 2, one of the firefighter or engineers in Glendale made a phone call to one of the battalion chiefs at that department who they worked with together on a side job, and kind of gave him my little background and his experience with me. And I went through the whole process, right? It was pretty much one of the most complicated processes I've ever gone through. It wasn't just your standard written test, come back, do an interview, come back, do a physical. You had to have your CPAT card, and which is you go take the physical and you hand them the card that says that way they're not going to run a physical agility test, which I think is how things are still. And so I already had that part done. So it was the written test, which thank God I had already taken a similar test the week before I took theirs. So I understood how that test worked. And then the interview process was a regular interview, right? A 3-panel interview. They ask you all the questions, the normal stuff. And then you went back out in the waiting room, and then they pulled you in and you did an assessment. still in your suit, still all on the same day. And you came in and they had all these tools laid out on a table. And they say, okay, we're going to give you a few minutes to prepare. You're going to explain what this tool is, the name, how to use it, how to take care of it, maintain it. And you went down. I think there was like 7 or 8 things. And one of them was a toilet scrubbing brush. So I don't know what they were trying to get out of that, but I figured, well, of course I'm going to get used to that. And I played it up like it was an axe or something and explained to them. And from what I remember, they got a little chuckle out of it, but I'm sure other people did that too. That's not what put me over. Then they said, okay, take 5-minute break. Go look at your stuff. Here's a dry erase board. Here's a CPR mannequin. You are going to teach CPR to a group of Boy Scouts. You got 5 to 10 minutes to prepare, and then we're your people. So we're the Boy Scouts. You explain to us how to do CPR. Huge thing that helped put me over, I think, also, now that I think about it. Myself and 2 other guys that were trying to get hired, we started a CPR business on the side. We had mannequins, we had a name, we had business cards, flyers, and we would go to dental offices and schools and things like that and teach CPR. And we were associated with the hospital, and we gave out American Heart Association cards and did all this stuff. That was right up my alley. So let's talk about stars being aligned. Boom. Did I do a great job? I don't remember. But I sure knew how to organize it and say all the things we had just taught a class for doing. So that was huge. I was already a BLS instructor or a CPR instructor or whatever. I can't remember all the terms from back then, but that was huge. That put me over, I think. The phone call, that CPR side business, having a paramedic license, and doing okay otherwise on the interviews, because this was nearly, I want to say, my 60-something test. So that's a lot of testing. That's a lot of people practicing interviews with you. You making all these connections over 6 years, and boom, I get hired by this department. 3-station department. I'll fast forward it. 5 years later, we get absorbed by LA County Fire July 1, 2005. So almost 5 years to the day, just over. That was the roller coaster ride. Now, in between that, there was a huge thing. I had only just gotten out probation, a 1-year probation as a firefighter paramedic. So not only did I have my firefighter probation skills I had to do, I also had to do medic skills. So I would get tested on both, which that's fine. That's what I wanted to do. I liked being a medic. It was what I wanted to do anyway. So, and I had great people there at that department that helped me. And like I said, I can remember not being super boot because I remember having a tough time on a couple of the tests and having to, I can't remember if I had to redo them or I had to make sure I brought my score up. So there's no way I know I was super boot. Now the medic stuff I felt a little more comfortable with, but it's the firefighting, right? You're doing both. So, anyways, what was my point? So you have to think also, I put this on my notes here. Yeah, I got hired by that department, a 3-station department, a firefighter medic, doing what I wanted to do. And then 2 years, so I got a probation, and then another year, they start talking about the department folding and go either absorbing with another department, joining a couple small departments in the area as one, or going with 2 different county agencies that we were surrounded by, Orange County, LA County, and a combination of 2 other cities that are around that, down that area. Roller coaster. And the first couple of times we got assessments for it and said, this is what we're going to do. In one of them, 9 of the 31 of us were going to get canned. And the other one, 15 of us were going to get canned. So half the department. Well, obviously, me and the other guy that got hired weren't going to be there anymore. So faced with that, I still kept taking tests. And what my point is even if you're not in that situation, which was kind of unique, you get your foot in the door and you work at a smaller department, or maybe it's a big one and you want to work for a smaller one, whatever it is that fits your situation, you still may keep down the testing process. So remember to never burn bridges as best you can, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know what you're going to be faced with or what things you might need to change, or maybe you want to work for a different department. And there's a lot of other little intricacies that were woven in over the years because of connections that I made working for that small department. But it was a great experience. It was awesome. And now I'm working for this large agency, and that's good. It's awesome. you realize that, like we said yesterday, we were joking. It's the, what is it? It's the same circus, different clowns. It doesn't matter size really of your agency. It's, for the most part, firefighters are firefighters. Volunteer, paid, small department, big department, medium size. It's all kind of the same, right? Especially when you meet another one and then you're like, you start talking the lingo and you realize really quick, we almost have our own little language and attitude and sheesh, maybe dressing style too. Who the heck knows? So anyways, I don't want to get off the rails. So remember, there might be times where you need to keep testing because it's not maybe 100% where you want to be. And like I said, I was testing Arizona, Las Vegas. Who knows? You never know. Your whole life can be changed, obviously, based on who hires you and where you set up routes for where you want to stay. I mean, there's some great agencies. One of the questions I want to ask people when I have interviews on here is, name some departments you'd like to work for. Now, you work for this department? Okay, what ones would you like to work for? So we all have that list. We all have that list where it's like, if I could do this life over again, where would I want to work? No? Okay, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a nerd that thinks like that. Like, okay, it would be cool. I like where I'm at here. I like this experience. But what would it have been like to work Boston or New York or New Orleans or Las Vegas? It's like all these crazy places. Or there's probably, I guarantee there's awesome departments I don't even know of just because I've grown up in LA my whole life. So I know there's good departments everywhere. That would be awesome. So anyways, what I'm saying there is you might have to find time where you go and, okay, well, I'm in good and I'm doing a good job on probation and I'm learning, but I might still continue to test and find a place I want to end up at. You've all either have that personal story, you've heard from friends that have that story, or, you've heard of that. You've heard of that. So anyways, okay. All right, let me take a look here and figure out what I'm doing. Let's see. Okay, so your background is going to be huge on how well your probation is going to go. Now, that's a bold statement, right? Well, duh. No kidding. But you know how people always complain, oh, we're not hiring the right people. We're not hiring the people with the experience. We're not hiring this person. Well, okay. Yes, I agree. And yes, I go, well, have I seen people that had no idea what the fire service was about become great firefighters? Yes. Have I seen people that had everything under the sun suck ass and do terrible on probation? Yes. They thought, oh, I've done everything to get hired. They look great on a resume. And then you meet that person and it's like you're holding a resume in front of you going, this looks bitchin'. And then you look at the person and go, this is the same person? So case by case basis. You just deal with you, right? And I'm going to talk about some other things when you have two probationary people or you're in a place where there's a bunch of probationary people and helping each other out. But, okay, so your background is going to determine how well your probation goes. Like I said, that's kind of a big statement, but do you have previous experience? Were you an explorer, worked on an ambulance, worked anything associated with some kind of fire service job? Hell, I don't even care if it's putting in fire sprinklers. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a wide range of things that can kind of tie into it. But when you have the straightforward ones, explorer, reserve firefighter, volunteer firefighter, EMT, paramedic, you worked in some kind of medical field that helps you with the EMS side, if your department handles that. All things that have gotten you at least in the ballpark of getting to the fire service. Reserve, cadet, ambulance operator, all these type things, right? Those are like the obvious ones that tie into the fire service. But how about other big ones? Construction, trades, medical field, hell, even sales, right? So I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't have all this. Okay, it doesn't matter. Where did you work? Oh, you were a waiter at Cheesecake Factory? Cool. You know how to talk to people within reason, right? Hopefully you do. Because all you did all day is talk to people. Whether it was people you worked with in the food side or customers. And I know if you did that, so let me take that as an example. I never worked in the food service, but I can imagine there's people that treat you like jerks, and there's people that you just kind of like, You just work through it and be nice, because what happens if you push back? Well, you don't think you do that every day in the fire service? You think patients are all, hey, just like we practice, my name's Steve, I have chest pain. It doesn't work like that. You know that. So I trial people all the time. Okay, what's your background? Well, I did this and this. Okay, awesome. Pretty much any job, another bold statement, pretty much any job you've ever had can be tied into the fire service. Somehow that skill that you have is going to be able to be used or guide you or whatever it may be. Now, my personal opinion is, if you want to be a firefighter, do stuff that's going to get you on that path. Now, yeah, can I say, oh, well, you know what? Then he's saying I could work at Starbucks and still be a firefighter. Oh, okay, yeah, come on. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying any jobs you've had is going to help you towards that. But I still think you should be doing a ton pushing towards the fire service. So how do you find out about all that stuff? Well, go to a fire station. Ask somebody. I don't know. Do people still do it? I don't see it happen very much anymore, where you go to a door and just bang on a door and at a firehouse and talk to people. No, I think you can do that. Is it probably better to call and make an appointment and do all that? Sure. You bet. Because I think about it right now, somebody banged on the door and was like, at noon, hey, I want to be a fireman. Great. It's lunchtime. Okay, so how much effort are you going to put into that person? But if they come and make an appointment or say, hey, can I come to the door, bang on the door, can I make an appointment whenever it's convenient for you to come back and learn about the fire service? That's a good approach. Phone call, all those things, right? It's going to help you. So whatever you're doing right now, and I don't want to get too far into recruiting or testing, but can help you down the road. Just also start working towards getting those things on your resume that helps you into the fire service, because that's going to be huge. That's going to help you in your probation period, learning things. Just the language and the culture of the fire service alone. If you can get some of that under your belt before coming to the floor on probation, it's just going to help you huge. All right. So culture, that just leads me into culture, right? We've talked about culture. I've talked about expectations. I've talked about culture in previous episodes. I'm not going to review that. The firehouse and culture in the fire service has its own life force, whatever you want to say. Its own being, its own rules, unofficial and unofficial. And if you're not used to it or you've never been exposed to it, it's an uphill battle, right? You're like, what the heck? I'm trying to figure out how to live with people but still do my job, and depending on how you're set up in your department. So there's that whole culture thing. I could talk about that for days. But you need to figure that part out. And then language too, right? The language of terms is huge in the fire service, to what we call certain things. And sometimes that's another one of those things. Certain departments call certain things this, and then you go to another agency after you've worked there, and now you need to learn what the term is there, that they call the same exact tool, but it's got two different names, one from your previous department and one for the one you're going to work for now. Or you have no idea what the hell people are talking about, and all the terms of equipment and slang terms and nicknames for things, you're like, what the hell? It makes your head explode. There's a lot. So, I mean, we're even down in the weeds with probationary people, just trying to explain to them terms and names and even nicknames of tools and why we call this that, or why we call this hose load that, right? You've all experienced that. That's how it is. So what else am I looking at here? So I put down here, get to know the terms of your department. That part's going to help you huge. And also culture, the fire service culture and specific culture to that department. You may do something completely different that other departments do. Certain lineups a certain way, the way you do drills, all those things. You just have to learn how that works, and it's kind of fast. Sometimes it's at a fast pace. Sorry, that's how it is. You work in a fast-paced job, one where seconds count. Now, do you have to live like that in the station? No, but sometimes you do. So you get where I'm going. So next, I'm going to start talking about how do you become a great person on probation. So I'm talking about the firefighter level, but also engineer and captain, or however you do your driving rank, and what's just an average person. So I'm going to take one break here for a second, and then I'll pick that up. Okay, so what does it take to be an exceptional firefighter on probation versus an average one versus, somebody that's just getting by and maybe isn't quite cutting it? Well, I don't know. It's so much, there's so much to it that I'm not going to capture everything. But let me see if I can put some points out there for you to help. And then also dive into being promoted in rank and some of the nuggets or ideas that you can do with that. But let's take it with the firefighter level, because that's usually right where everybody puts the most weight into probation status. And your department may not have a probationary period when you promote, but ours does. It's 6 months in rank when you promote to engineer, and to captain, you have a 6-month probation. So I'll touch on that near the end. But for right now, what can you guide your probationary firefighters that may be under your command or might be in the future? And how can you guide them the right way? Because you can't expect them to come in and have it all dialed in and they just give you a great drill and they handle incidents well and they're ready to go, because they're not there. They're not there. Now, to be promoted and in rank and everything, you've got to have some years on, I'm assuming, depending on how your department works, but you got to have at least a few years on before you even can promote. So you already have that a little bit under your feet. Now, it depends where you've worked and all that, how much of that your personal level that you're at when you get somebody that's brand new under you. So you can see what I'm saying. You got to give these people time. So what I'm talking about initially here is station life stuff, and then we can talk about incident stuff as well. But some advice as far as being on probation. Control the things that you can control and make those the norm. Don't have to have somebody reinvent the wheel and tell you every time what proper uniform you should be in, what time you need to be at work, how to do a good drill. Now, are all your drills going to be stellar? No, because the topics can be small and something that you have an expertise in, or it could be something that's so big that you're just trying to understand the terms yourself. So that's going to happen. But I'm talking about what time you give the drill, how you give the drill. And as you've given them and people give you pointers, are you injecting those pointers that they're telling you how to make your stuff better? And I'm not going to tell you exact details because some departments have certain specific ways they want it done. But what I am talking about is just don't go surface level. Surface level and basic knowledge stuff that maybe you're given a packet to study and you just need to regurgitate these stats, or you just got to stand up there. And now a lot of people are doing PowerPoints and pictures and videos and YouTube, and that's cool. But if you're just reading a PowerPoint and you really don't have the numbers down in your head on certain specific equipment, you're not helping yourself at all. And it's going to be apparent when you build up that framework and you start moving on down the road and you need to regurgitate those numbers, or another drill comes up or a topic gets brought up, say like the spreaders. We just did an auto extrication drill. And prior to going to the drill, because I don't want to sit there and listen to numbers on the actual drill ground where we're going to cut a car, I'll ask the probationary firefighter, how wide is it? How much does it weigh? They just got to be in the ballpark. I don't expect them to know exact details, but I can take those numbers and show them where it applies and why that stuff actually matters. So that's one little thing. But getting back to surface level, while you're on probation, don't do surface level drills. That's just the basics. Dig a little bit deeper. Get some more information. I'm not going to give you specifics, but I'm talking about, there's too many to cover. But if you have a certain amount of material that you just need to regurgitate and explain to your crew, we'll dive deeper. I mean, you've seen it. You've probably done it. You call these companies directly and you ask them for a little more detail, or how did they make this, or how did they come up with this? Even if you just added a little history component to it and then gave all your facts and just something different. Just in the short time I've had probationary people, it's like, oh, goodness, some of them are only a month or two behind each other. So you're hearing the same drill, spit out again a month later. And that's good and bad. It's good because if you're working on the same crew, you might have already seen it, or, you get to see how it is. But it's bad because now you got this comparison level that's within a really short time frame. There was no gap for your crew to kind of forget about the other probationary person, and then now you come in, and so that can be tough that we're actually deal with that in certain situations now. But go deeper than surface level, get some more facts, try to just bring it up a notch. Always try to aim a little bit higher on your drills. And then What else do I have here? Did you work for another department? So say you worked for another department and the one you work for now does things a little bit different. Can you interject some of the ones that maybe some drills you did with your old department to just give it a new flavor or a new twist? Now, obviously, you don't want to inject. It's like one of the things that was told to us when we came over to our department. You don't bring up your old department and say, well, over there we did this, because you can see where that opens the door for people to say, like, well, why don't you go back there then if it's so cool? And you're not necessarily saying that, but you have the potential to open that. But if there was something that your old department did that you worked for, and now you work for a different department, and you can just mold it in or blend it in, then cool, do it. Do it. Maybe a certain style or the way somebody taught you how to do a drill, use it. You don't have to repeat the way somebody else does it, right? Even though that's what you're used to seeing in the academy. We basically just repeat what the person in front of us did, as long as they're doing it right. But if you can add that little flavor because you had an experience in another department that maybe had done it differently or had some more information or just kind of guided you different, then go ahead, by all means. Let's see. Attention to detail. I'm going to come back to that one in a second. But on the response thing, so I'll come back to the attention to detail thing that has to do with just the firehouse life. On calls and on responses, it depends on what you get in your level that you are at when you go your first day, first few months. And we break up our probation by first spot 6 months, second spot 6 months. So if you have a first spot person, there's a lot you got to teach them. You get a second spot person, maybe the first group that had them didn't do a great job. So you may have some work to do just to get them up to par to start their second 6 months. It just depends. But on the response side, when you're going on medical calls, fires, brush fires, traffic collisions, elevator rescues, whatever it may be, they don't have a lot of knowledge. So you're going to have to keep that short leash and you're going to have to guide them. So having a person on probation can be taxing at times because you got to explain so much. You know, it's not like a fluid crew where you really don't have to say much to each other and you get things done. You need to build that person up. So you have to remember that they need guidance and showing things and just need the exposure. Where it can be frustrating is when you've showed that person or you've shown them what's right and what right looks like by not just explaining, but physically showing them maybe a patient assessment or throwing ladders or pulling hose. And you've done it over and over. And then when an incident comes or another drill comes and they're still basically back at square one because they're not trying to get better themselves, then yes, that can be frustrating. So how do you fix that? You got to try to get better every day and remember the things that were taught to you and just try to get better. Now, is there a patient assessment? They do 5 patient contacts and they have 5 patient assessments that day. Or do you think by the 5th one they're much better? No, I'm talking months or weeks before it gets better. So you have to give them that time to get better, but it's the responsibility of that person on probation to get better. You can't just be like, well, it's not my fault because I don't have enough time on the job. No. You can see where I'm at, right? It's a give and take both ways. You got to put in the effort, and the people supervising need to give you the time to get there. So that's all I'm going to say on that thing because we could go on for days about responses and things. It's not really anything that we would change the world on just by talking about it. A lot of times I've noticed that people will say, oh, this person's great, a good probationary firefighter. Well, why? Oh, because they cook well, they keep the station tidy, they do all this stuff. Well, that's cool, that's great. Even when you're off probation, guess what you're doing? Still cleaning the bathrooms, still doing all the things that you should do, even off probation. That's just part of firehouse life. You're just cleaning the house. But it's a combination of cleaning and doing all this extra work, and you're always in the dishes or however it may work for your department. But that's really not going to change the day you get off probation because you're probably still going to be the junior person on that shift. Now, is that right? No, it's not 100% right. And you have you're not so under the gun after you get off probation, but if you keep that mentality and you keep that work ethic, it's going to do miracles for you in the future. So it's okay to say, you're not necessarily slacking off. You're just not doing all the extra things. Like our people get to work at 6 a.m. when we really have shift change at 7. It's kind of just a culture thing. And they're doing a lot of stuff ahead of time. And they do that for the whole first year. And that's a lot of extra work put in over a year. That's not, it's unofficially part of their process, and then it kind of that goes away after they get out probation. But like I said, you're still going to be cleaning the station. You're still maintaining the rigs. You're still doing all the extra stuff, maybe just not to the intensity level that you were on probation. But like I said, if you can keep that edge and you kind of keep doing that, cool. But it isn't how good you clean or how well you cook. That's important too, but not nearly as important as building that skill level. So yeah, you can clean the toilets well and the toilet paper is always full and, all that good stuff. But when you go on a call and they don't know the details of equipment, what's more important? Like, I could care less. Honestly, I tell people, I joke with them, like, I could care less if you clean the bathroom. Don't clean it. I'd rather see you out on the apparatus floor pulling stuff out all day because you struggled on a drill or we messed up a call or whatever it may be. I would rather see that. That's me personally. And I think most people agree with that. But it's a lot, right? They're trying to do so much. Now, how do you fix that, though? You can't just put them out there and go, I expect you to be out there on your own figuring it out. They're not going to figure it out. They need the guidance. It comes from all ranks. Interjecting and seeing them out there and see them going the extra mile, where you're going to attract the senior firefighters, the engineer, or maybe even your captain or the whole crew to see that you're trying to put in that extra effort. And they're going to come out and want to help you as well. Now, remember, a lot of it's a mind game. A lot of it's a mind game to see what you're going to do or how you're going to react or how you recover. So, we could talk about harassment or not harassing, but hazing and all that. So, okay, I'm not even going to open that up because does that happen and does it help? And to a degree, that's just how it is. But I'm not talking about anything that's, hurting people, any of that stuff that should be allowed to go on, that shouldn't. I'm not even going to discuss that right now because some people take the fact that they get yelled at a little bit or whatever as hazing when somebody's trying to save your life or keep you from doing something stupid to get hurt, or they're tired of correcting you on certain things, then you might get some heat. So what? This is a job where you can get killed. If somebody's going to say something and just give you a little bit of heat because they don't want to see you get hurt and they've told you something multiple times, well, maybe you should listen. So take that in consideration depending on the situation, where you might be like, so-and-so doesn't like me because they're always in my dish or whatever. But what are they actually saying? Think about what they're actually saying and what are they trying to portray to you where that can happen to you. Now, if they're just being a jerk and they're on a power trip, then they need to get beat down as well, too, as far as getting them in check. It's not acceptable to just take it out on the probationary firefighter because you have some time on and now, well, that's what was done to me, so now I'm going to give them the beat down. No. Now, is it the little bit of hazing or the little bit of kidding and joking? Sure. Now it's your turn to do that to them. But when you just straight up just try to be a jerk or, beat your chest or thump your chest on them or whatever, and you're not helping the situation, then what good are you really doing? You might as well just take that senior firefighter role and flush it down the toilet because that's not what you're doing. All right, let's see. What's other important things? So things that I never, like I think I've mentioned it before on here. I was an explorer with the city of Glendale in California. And I didn't know until they brought this up, all these little detail things. Like you'd be running during the little academy they have, and they'd ask you what the address was of a certain station. What street did you just cross over when you were running? What 100 block are we in right now when you're running? That's attention to detail. And that's big. But if you don't know, like, what's the address of the station I work at? What battalion am I in? What division am I in? Who's my chief? Who's the rank structure? Small department, big department, doesn't matter. If you don't know those things, you're just opening yourself up. It really shows that you don't care. So even though it sounds really into the weeds, you better know the address station on the top of your head. Don't pull out your phone and try to look up the address. You look like a goof when somebody asks you, well, what's the address to your station? What's the phone number there? The rank structure. There's a lot, right? There can be a lot depending on the size of your department. That's low-hanging fruit that you should already automatically know. So make sure you know that stuff. Know some of the history of your department. Know some of that stuff. On top of everything else you're already doing. Try to dig a little bit deeper and have those little details and those facts. And like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. Just put it in your wheelhouse of things that you should probably try to accomplish or things that are going to help push you over the edge just to be that much better. Okay, so what am I talking about? Attention to detail. What do I mean? I'm talking about nighttime stuff of just the firehouse. Taking ownership in the firehouse. Not just being there like you're a guest. Now, when you're on probation, you might feel like I'm a guest on your own shift in that station. Same thing when you're working on overtime or whatever it may be somewhere else that it's not your normal station. But if your program is to always do the same thing, even off probation, like I said before, this isn't just a game that you deal when you're off probation and then you hit the chairs and the feet are reclined up and you just go into cruising mode. Each rank still has their responsibility off probation. It's probation that helps you build those good habits, improve yourself, and get through all those hoops. And you're still going to continue on with it no matter what. I've mentioned before in previous episodes, when I worked in West Hollywood, on my shift, I had 10 years on the job. I was the boot fireman. Everybody else, all the firemen, engineers, captain, had rank and time on me. So, obviously not the fireman. There's 4 of us on that shift. I was the boot fireman, 10 years on. And I still acted like that when it came to projects or certain things that needed to get done because right or wrong, or some of you are probably going, whatever, I'm not doing that at 10 years in, but I was aware of it. And did I get treated like a boot? No. But when there were senior things or junior things that should be handled by me or whatever, I kind of took that in consideration when I was doing things. So look at it even out of that 30,000 foot view. Doesn't matter how much time you have on. If you're the junior person in that station on your shift, you might still get that default type things happening. But back to what I'm talking about as far as attention to detail. Things that get noticed, that help make you a better probationary firefighter and get noticed as well, are things as simple as securing the station at night. Now, you might have certain structure and certain people do certain things at your department based on rank or whatever it may be, taking the flags down, getting the coffee ready for the morning, in the morning bringing the paper in, but that stuff's gone. Like, I don't even know the last time I've seen a newspaper at a firehouse. So even those little things have gone away. Emptying the dishwasher, picking up all the cups around the station, making sure all the lights are on, doors are locked, stations secured, rigs are plugged in at night. All the tools in the tool room that you might have been using throughout the day are put away and clean. The shop's clean as best you can. If you're working on a project that you're going to pick up the next day or is a big thing, then okay, just maintain it, pick it up a little bit. Are the floors clean? Are the towels, the rig towels washed? Kitchen towels washed? There's so much to do. Is the dishwasher ready to go and lined up and ready to start? Those are low-hanging fruit gimmies that are just going to be your routine depending on your department, but that's been in my experience. That's just the way it's going to be. You're going to do that every day, even after probation. But if you get a good habit while you're on probation, that's huge. That's attention to detail. But like I said, on top of all that stuff, the most important thing is learning your craft. Now, like I said, do I care that if you suck and you're having a hard time and you're struggling and you're not asking questions and you're not trying to go the extra mile and you're not out there pulling equipment off the rig, do you think I care that you spray cleaner in the toilet or that you make a great cup of coffee? Or no, none of that's going to save you, or it shouldn't. What you need to do is do all that stuff, but maybe a little bit faster, and you need to get out there and get that equipment off the rig, and you need to ask questions. And you don't just barely scrape by and get across that goal line to just know enough information or just figure out just enough or try to get creative and go, well, I want to do it this way, even though somebody showed you a certain way to do it. A lot of things in this job are detail-oriented. You do things the way you were taught for a reason. And it's probably explained to you, but you get so much coming at you, it's going over your head. So when you try to do something different and go, well, I just wanted to do it this way, that's going to bite you in the tail. So there might be times where that's appropriate, but for the most part, when it comes to training, equipment, incident-driven, you're being taught a certain way for a reason. So remember that. All right, so I think I beat up enough about just being an entry-level firefighter and kind of coming in and doing that. So let's talk about probation and rank. So I'm just going to break it down with what I know, but you can interject it and switch out the terms that I use for the person I'm talking about. So now I'm going to talk about the person that's the driver, the chauffeur, the engineer. That's what we call him. You have 6-month probation for that too. So not only did you go through a big testing process and You got promoted. You may get put into a place you've never worked before with people you've never worked with, or you work at a department that you know everybody, and that's good too. But now you're in a different rank. So how do you make that work? Well, I don't have all the answers. I can give you my experience, and I can tell you what some of the things I did right or wrong, and you'll have your own, which is good. And if you have something that I don't cover in here, then throw it at me on a message or get a hold of me on Instagram or the website, and I'm going to revisit these things. What I've noticed after doing this many episodes is I need to go back and make notes and fill in holes. Because when you're doing this by yourself and you're talking, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. I don't have like in a classroom setting where when people kind of keep me on point, or we have a list of objectives and I capture them and I try to stay as focused as possible. But I'm going to have holes. I'm going to come back and fill them in. But this is a topic that can get revisited and fill in those holes. But as far as in rank, you had that 6-month period. So say for the driver, right? Mostly engine operations and truck operations, two different animals. And hopefully you're being taught in both, which is good if you have that ability to have both types of equipment, or you have a unique engine that's got a ladder and it's like a combination thing. So however it may be, you deal with what you have that's presented to you, which is good. There's so many combinations of cool things, but just say the basics, engine operations. You got to learn how to pump, right? You should already know before you get promoted. I understand that. But you knew enough just to pass the test and to get promoted. It's like trying to say that a person that gets hired as a firefighter should know everything. We just talked about that, right? You know the basics, and you were taught the basics to just get you into that seat. Now you need to just build on it. So as I mentioned before in other episodes, you got to give yourself time to be new and fail and learn things and realize you're going to screw up plenty. Then somebody may take you under their wing and explain it to you, or they may not. It just depends on your situation. It's going to be something completely different. So I was on the firefighter paramedic for 14 years, and then I promoted to an engineer. Got put into a spot, actually at the station I'm at now, as a captain. I had to fill behind an engineer who had been there for years and was the iconic engineer, like knew everything, detail-oriented, amazing engineer, and I'm coming in after him and filling those shoes. Now, you already have to walk into those shoes and try to be the person that this crew, a senior crew, was used to. You got to just try your best. If you let that overwhelm you and you try to be that person, you're not going to be that person. You got to start your own path. It's a new chapter in that station's history with you being there. Like you're trying to fill those shoes, but you're just trying to mainly just do that. Just fill their shoes. You're not that person. You're not their knowledge. And don't try to be. Don't try to fake it till you make it type thing. I can't stand that term. You have to have a certain basis knowledge to come in, and you put all this effort into understanding how it works, and then you just do you. You have to spend every day learning something new. Like to me, it was a big change being an engineer and driving, not only the job itself, but the fact that I had more time in the day. I wasn't going to the hospital and following up with patients. We weren't doing a bunch of other firefighter stuff. I was able to focus on the apparatus and training up the crew and kind of being that middle person between the captain and the crew and getting those things coordinated, which was good. But there was plenty of time for me to do things like polish the light bar. Like that was my thing. I hated when the plastic on the light bar got dull. So it'd always be out there, or polishing the diamond plate. Or that's great, right? That's like polishing I just said it, right? It's like cleaning the bathroom and thinking that you know everything. That's not part of it. That was just my little thing. But there was plenty of times we had to just drill constantly and pump and multi-lines and do all those things. We had task book. We had to get signed off. We got probation of 6 months we got to do. So you can get demoted. You can say you didn't pass promotion and pass your probation period and get sent back down. Task book and all kinds of stuff that had to get done in that probationary period, plus drills. So what do you think happens when you're on probation in rank and you're at a multi-company drill? Who do you think needs to step up and take charge and put themselves out there to do those drills, to teach other people? Or you're almost like giving these probationary drills again in rank. And you're like, well, I'm already past that. Well, not really. You're in a new job. So you need to learn that stuff. It's going to be expected of you, even in rank, to do what you did on probation when you were a firefighter. You're going to give those drills, be that person that steps up and takes on those extra tasks, fills in. That's my opinion. That's what you should be doing. You may say otherwise, but that's okay. And it may not work that way where you work, but I'm going to say for the most part, that's the way it should be done. So you're going to look at that. So other things I was thinking about, not just polishing the rig and making sure everything looks cool and helping run the station, doing my little thing. I wasn't trying to step over the captains, but there was plenty of times I was laying under the rig and just looking at the plumbing and looking at things anything that was broken under the rig, or cleaning, lubing the chassis of the rig, just looking at the plumbing and how everything worked and getting my head wrapped around all the mechanical part of that job. That I had all that time to do that. It was great. I loved it. Working with the mechanics to fix things, helping maintain the station. It was all good stuff. It's kind of a cool middle ground position. And then the other part that I've noticed, because I had this experience recently as a captain, going to work at a station in overtime where there's one captain, so there's 2 overtime spots, every other day. And the engineers have been there. They're on probation or just about to get off. And it's kind of a unique area. We run with other agencies, and there's different comm frequencies and a couple unique spots that you can get into. And as the engineer, especially when you don't have a captain and you're getting the substitute teachers every day coming in for their 24-hour shifts or whatever it may be, it's on you to get that local area knowledge and play up to the next rank, basically, and understand when a person like myself who's visiting comes and asks a guy who's been there for months, hey, what channel do you talk to this department on? Just, I should know myself too, but when you want to double check and you're asking a person who's the engineer who's been there and you don't know, that just really can be difficult, because I just got the whole I'm not quite sure. I'm like, okay, well, if we go up this way, how does that work? Well, no, I don't know. That's not good, especially on probation. You need to step it up and know a lot of those little intricacies of your district, the way things work, because not only could you be acting, a lot of times we bump up our engineer to acting captain. That's usually the first move that we would move up, right? So you move up one if the captain's gone. The engineer is that person. So not only do you have to learn your stuff, but you need to learn the rank above you, because you can put in that acting position for a few hours or 8 hours or whatever it may be that the captain might be gone. So you have to know that as well. So you're allowing yourself time to be new in that position, but you're also thinking, like, goodness, any day now they could say, hey, we need you to act because the captain's going to be gone. So you got to balance kind of 2 jobs. For the most part, you're going to be doing your engineer stuff. Driver, chauffeur, whatever you want to call it. But you have the ability, potentially, maybe your department doesn't allow that, but most of them do, to act up. So you're going to need to know some of the basics of that too, eventually. Get your basis down of understanding your job as an engineer, and then you can start delving into having the captain show you a few things and then work your way up. But having that local knowledge is huge. It's when you're in that situation where you may not have a regular captain and they're coming to ask you information and you don't have the answer. Okay, I don't expect you to know everything, but when I'm asking just kind of some basic, simple things that I should already know, like I said, but I want to double check or bounce it off the engineer and they give you the blank stare deer in the headlights, that's not good. So try not to be that person. All right, there's a lot more, right? There would be a lot more in rank, but that's the big meat and potatoes, nuts and bolts of the basics. You need to learn your job. So you're going to get out there again like you were on probation as a firefighter, but now as an engineer, and you're going to not want to go, oh, can we take the crew out to go pull hose and pump and do all this stuff because I need it? Yeah, it feels awkward. But if you bring it up and you're serious about it, and what do you think the crew is going to do? Yeah, like I said, they're going to give you the maxi sound, like somebody pulled the maxis on the rig. But what happens when you get people out there and you start training? Once everything gets going and the machine starts rolling, people are actually happy to be out there. It's just getting them out the door. So yeah, you put that on yourself, like, hey, sorry guys, but I need to get my task book signed off. I need to learn my job. Can we go pull some hose and I need to mule a line and get my hydrant and do all those things and get my calculations right and all that stuff. Well, you're also building up their trust in you as well for doing that. So understand that, yeah, it sucks to ask and you need to do it. But, you shouldn't have to pull teeth based on your captain. Should be like, yeah, let's get you trained up. But sometimes you're in that situation where you're going to have to pull teeth just to get yourself out there. And you can do a lot, right? You can do a lot without having to impact your crew on some of the things. But some of the things you can't. You need help. We need to run it like an incident. We need to be out there doing things in multi-company and, all kinds of stuff. So don't be afraid to ask. But don't wait till the very end either where you're like, I got to get this done. So it's slowly chunking away at it. Okay, so what is it like to be on probation as a captain or a lieutenant or whatever your rank structure might be? I'm just going to use captain term because that's what we have. But what is that like? Well, it's kind of the same again. You're the new person, and you don't think that everybody's aware that you're the new captain, especially if there's only one of you that's promoted into that battalion or that department, or there's a handful of you, whatever it may be, however the situation is. People know when you're on probation, right? So you probably have some kind of task book. You're going to have evaluations. Now you have a battalion chief who's probably going to be, who's obviously going to be your supervisor, but going to be critiquing you and doing paperwork and doing your monthly evaluations if you have that. So once again, you're kind of like starting over, even though you have the bugles and you're the rank, you still have a probationary period. If you do, right? So I'm talking about places that actually do. So what do you think you're going to be doing? Probably the same thing. Hosting battalion drills, meeting with your battalion chief and trying to learn what expectations are. And should he be telling you how to do, or he or she be telling you how to do your job? Probably not, but they want to see you, how you do things and what your mindset is. So they're probably going to have multiple conversations with you. You might be involved in captain's meetings and things like that now because that's what you're a part of. Well, some of those places, some of the battalion chiefs we had, when they were on probation, they'd have the probationary captain who's coming to a captain's meeting put together some kind of report or teach something. So you might have that situation where you're put in the spot to be teaching other captains and you're on probation. They're kind of evaluating you. That's how it is. You don't think you're being evaluated every time you get a call and everybody knows, here's their first time sizing up an incident or their first actual incident they're running. Yeah. But if you're doing a good job and you're putting yourself out there and you're trying hard and you're falling on your face, but you're getting back up and dusting off, what do you think's going to happen? I've told this story a couple times this week, but one of the first grass fires I had as a captain totally crapped the bed. I wasn't on the right channel. My size up for it was way off. I quadrupled the size that I thought it was looking at it, right? Because at night, not only does fire look like it's twice as big as it actually is, but it's your first time. And now you're trying to do good and totally messed it up. And this captain came over and physically put his arm around me and said, hey, number one, you're on the wrong channel. Number two, it's about a quarter of what you think it is right now that you told dispatch on your size up. And that was it. Those are the only two things. He goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. I want you to do this, this, and this. Clean this up right here, and we'll get this thing handled. Boom. 6 years later, you think I don't still think about that? You bet. So, and after you get out that probationary period and you get that time underneath you, guess what you'll probably be doing? You're going to be that captain who put their arm around me and you're trying to say to the new guy, hey, here's what's going to happen. And here's what happens, and no problem, we'll get it all cleaned up. You can't keep falling on your face and being a turd and being a constant mess and not trying to get better. That's not going to help you. You won't. We've had people get demoted in our department, and I'm sure other places. It happens. It sucks, but it happens. So don't be that person, right? You're hearing me constantly say, yeah, you're going to fall on your face, you're going to dust yourself off, and you're going to get better. But it all comes from just getting back up in the saddle and trying to get better. But if you're a know-it-all and think that, whatever, they're just picking on me, good luck. You know how that works. So, anyways, you can anticipate if you have, depending on your system for writing reports or writing major incident reports for fires or, things like that, you're probably going to be the one that everybody turns to or looks at when the chief asks, like, oh, hey, who's going to do this, or who wants to do this, or who wants to do this report. Probably should be you. stepping up and taking on those opportunities, because you need the experience, you need the time to do it, and it's just going to help you. And it builds, once again, deposits and credits for the other captains looking at you going like, yeah, all right, stepping up, trying to get better. That's huge, because then I would hope that maybe that was a little bit of what had to do with why that captain came over and put their arm around me and kind of guided me, because they knew I was trying to do well and I cared and I wanted to do a good job, but I just wasn't there yet. So that's huge. Let's see here. What more about that? How do you get better at size ups, doing paperwork and all that good stuff, right? The paperwork, you're like, give me a break. How do you get better at paperwork? Well, is it important? Not really, but it is important when it comes to generating reports and your month-end reports you may have, or keeping tabs and time management and a lot of stuff that goes into the office side of being a supervisor. But you don't think that it's important to run scenarios and run sims and use a whiteboard and you're writing all over it, trying to come up with scenarios and talking with other captains and interjecting on how they run incidents and how do they delegate things and run incidents and things like that. That's huge. You're just asking questions. So you have that time and you're continuing taking more classes, and you're just trying to build up your base knowledge. You should have a good base knowledge before you promote. You're going to hear me say that all the time. If you don't have a good base knowledge because, one, you're promoting really fast and you really haven't been anywhere to get that knowledge, whatever. If that pisses some people off, that's fine, but it's the truth. If you don't have it, it's never going to be there. The only way it's going to be there is you going to a busy place in rank and learning it, because the learning curve is so steep, or can be, depending on where you work, that if you don't have the experience, okay, maybe you can't do much about it. Previous episodes I've talked about, I tell you, try to get as much experience as you can before you get into the seat as being a company officer, just to help you in the future. You may not have that opportunity. It may not work that way. So I don't want to sound like an egotistical jerk, but if you can do it, that's always going to be my suggestion. But if you promote quickly and you don't really put in the effort to try to make yourself better, you're just going to be getting across that goal line and getting the promotion. But are you that person that the chief wants to see coming around the corner to handle this incident? We'll see. Time will tell, right? So, let's see. What am I out here? Oh, okay. So it's cool. A smart thing, I guess, was told to me later after I had been at my station. I spent most of my time. So for LA County, I worked in Palmdale. It's the north part of LA County, a desert area that's steadily busy. I promoted to a different spot for 6 months, and then this was another spot that I finally got my permanent spot. And I spent about 4.5 years there. And I learned a lot, like really fast. So that was great. But what do you think I did when I first came into that station? It was an engine truck house. They already had established people that had been around in the desert for a while. And I didn't know enough to even come in and interject. The only thing I stuck to in my guns was SOP, SOGs, that I kind of have a loose framework, which I still have to this day. I said that's the non-negotiable, right? I want to see how they do things, but I also, if it lined up with mine and it was appropriate for what it was, then cool. I didn't come in guns a-blazing with that, but I at least had that. I wasn't going to sit back on my duff for a couple weeks or a month and then see how they do things, because that's not what I'm there for. I was a supervisor. I needed to have some guidance in case something happened, but all the little things, the details I didn't know about, I didn't say a thing about. I let them explain to me how we did things in that area, how they did things, why, then learning about the district and having my engineers and firefighters that were there show me around and help me get my feet under me. And I hear months later, right, like years later too, I talked to my engineers who are now captains, and they're like, that was the best thing, is you came in and you waited and you kind of asked us how we did things, but you also had the weight and the responsibility of saying, okay, good. I like to do this, this, and this on incidents. And it was a balance. And then I sat back for a couple weeks to a month, just trying to get my feet under me and understanding how things operate. And guess what? I probably didn't have to change that much. But I kept my mouth shut about things that I didn't know about, but I asked a lot of questions. And I didn't just ask the other captains. It was the engineers and the firefighters that had been around. And I think that helped with getting them to understand I kind of knew what I was doing after a while, and then they could trust me. That's the biggest thing, right? Maybe I wouldn't say I know what I'm doing, but they trusted me to do the right thing. That's huge. If you can get to that point, and if anything that you can learn out of this is you got to get to the point where your crew trusts you. They trust your command. They trust your judgment. They're willing to go the extra mile for you. That's huge. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's everything that you say, everything that you do, and everything that you lead by example to do. So you get what you put into it. Now, am I perfect? Hell no. And do I think about it a ton? Obviously. I wouldn't be doing this and talking into a microphone if I wasn't passionate about this part of it. I'm passionate about the operations too. And I really don't, like I said, I don't get into it too much here until I get to the point where I start talking about doing interviews with people, or you come to one of the hands-on classes that I'm going to put on. I don't talk a lot of tactics because it's too difficult. I don't have the feedback back and forth in a classroom type thing when you're just talking about stuff by yourself in here. I can give you some basics that open the door when I talk about things, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about getting the trust and the understanding and the mindset of being in the company officer role. So, all right. Whew. This has been a long one. Hour and 22 minutes so far. Let me wrap up with a question from the streets. Getting kind of near some of the end of the list of people when I first asked a while ago who had questions about things. So I'm going to throw out another thing here soon and ask you guys for some other topic ideas. But this one was asking for an opinion on allowing senior firefighters to train the probationary firefighters and letting them sign them off. So the senior firefighters, letting them sign them off when they think they're competent. Do I think that's a good idea? Yeah, I do. I think they have to. I think they need to be involved 100%, obviously. I think their opinion matters. I do think as a company officer, you need to be there, and you don't just put all that on the senior firefighters and go, yeah, go ahead and do that while I'm in the office pretending like I'm doing something, or doing something in my dorm and pretending like I'm busy. Do I go out there all the time and like Hawkeye and hovering parent over the boots? No. Over the probationary? No, because I know the engineer and the senior firefighters are training them up and getting them ready for drills. And right, you do the cruise through the app bay and you just kind of pretend like you're going somewhere, but you're looking around, just seeing what they're doing and making observation of what they're doing. And that's cool. And sometimes you walk over and I just look at what they're doing, and I don't get in there and try to say, yeah, but let me tell you this, or let me tell you the one time I did this, or any of that. I don't. It's not the place for do that. You can bring it up in a story, maybe when they actually put on a drill, or when you go on an incident, or when you're doing training at a building. Okay, sure. Yeah, definitely bring it up. Stories help, and experience helps. But you won't see me out there all the time on top of them, because the firefighters and the engineers do a great job of doing that. At least that's how our culture works. And I'm pretty sure that's how it works everywhere else, but, within reason. So do I think that the senior firefighters are the ones that say if the person's good or not? I definitely think they have a major influence on it, because they hear all the little things that you won't hear as a captain. You know what's going on, but you're not hearing it firsthand. So you better lean on them, your seniors, firefighters, and your engineer to actually tell you what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dark. Now, where you have to get involved is when somebody is sucking ass and they're not quite cutting it. And you're doing paperwork to either get rid of them or to put them on an improvement needed plan or something of that nature. You better be involved. And you better be writing things down in their file or in their evaluations from the day they get there, if they're that bad. because you can't just pass them competent, and then all of a sudden drop the hammer and be like, this person sucks. It usually doesn't work out so well like that. You got to show a progression of really not getting it or something. But if you have somebody that sucks, I don't want to go too crazy with this because your department may handle it a certain way, but if you have somebody who's barely getting by and probably isn't going to pass their probation, you got to do document. And I would say then phone a friend and get some suggestions on how to do that. And as a friend, not going hardcore to human resources or whoever you use to do the heavy lifting, but get some opinions from people by phoning a friend and asking them, see if somebody's ever been in that situation or how do I do this? And I'm not talking running up the chain to the chief. But you also don't sit on your duff and try to contain it in-house and if it's getting away from you. If it's getting away from you and you're like, gee, this is not going to go well. This person's a mess and you try to contain it in your house and you're trying to clean it up and get them where they need to be. But if it starts to get too far out there, you might need to run it up the chain a little bit. I'm all for handling it in-house. Like the chief shouldn't know anything until it's out of my hands and out of my control within reason. It shouldn't be a freaking hydrogen bomb dropping on the chief with something and going, here you go. Well, how long has this been going on? Oh, 6 months to a year. Whew. Well, obviously that wouldn't work on probation, but say it was months and then all of a sudden you go, this person's terrible. And now you're just letting them know. That's going to be tough. So, like I said, the best you can do is document, and then figure out and phone a friend the process you need to take. Now, hopefully you never have to deal with that. But because we don't get great training on that. Like, how do you deal with a problem employee or somebody who's not cutting it? You know, you would think that you were handed somebody that really wants to be there and knows what the heck's going on and does a great job. But there's going to be those instances where it's not quite what you were handed. So you got to be prepared for that. But to go back to the question, do I think that the senior yes, I think they have a massive influence on it. I don't think they should come to you and say, yeah, they're good to go. We already signed the paperwork. You need to be somewhat involved. But they're going to do the bulk of the heavy lifting for you. And they're going to get this person tuned up to where they need to be to get them to that minimum standard, if not beyond. And that's who you need to rely on. So good question. I like it. It definitely ties into this subject. And like I said, it's almost an hour and a half now. And you're just listening to this windbag here talk about stuff. But like I said, I'm going to miss things. And there's things that you probably wish I had talked about. But maybe I went a little too deep on certain things. This one kind of covers more for probationary people, but also in rank and then being the supervisor on somebody who's on probation. So hopefully that was worth your time and effort. And if you get anything out of this, you can pass it on to other firefighters or probationary people or people that they think are getting onto the job. Cool. If there's other ideas that I could add or expand on, or maybe I'm way off base on something, always hit me up on Instagram account. The website is thefireofficerproject.com. Instagram is the same. You just type in the Fire Officer Project and you should see it pop up. Go into the bio up top and you can hit all the links to everything just to get a hold of me. I try to make it easy. And that's it. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you once again for all the support. We're getting close. And I mean, it's amazing every time I see the numbers just climbing up. And it's all because of you. So thank you very much for your support. You know where everything is that you can find me. I'm working on some new episodes as this one gets processed. And that's all I have for you. Be safe and remember, keep moving forward.